On an ordinary morning, journalist Yunus Yıldırım vanished without a trace. His family, who were accustomed to his presence at home, noticed that he had not returned from work the day before. As hours passed, the anxiety turned into overwhelming fear. The police were notified, and initial investigations began, yielding no results. The question that began to arise was, did Yunus disappear by his own will, or was there someone behind his disappearance? It marked the beginning of an intriguing mystery. Was this a well-planned crime, or just an ordinary incident? As the family's concern grew, they decided to go to the police and file an official report about his disappearance. The police, who immediately began their investigation, approached the case with suspicion. His home was carefully searched, but everything appeared in its usual state except, for one thing, his missing mobile phone. The family inquired about Yunus's relationships, and some disturbing notes emerged regarding threats he had received recently. Were these threats a precursor to something worse? Everyone was on edge, awaiting what would come next. Amid the mystery surrounding Yunus's disappearance, the police started to delve into his mobile phone and email correspondence. Something unusual surfaced, raising suspicions about his professional and personal past. Some journalists and public figures started to emerge in the investigation. Yunus was known for shining a light on sensitive issues, publishing reports on corruption and scandals, which made him a target for many potential enemies. Was his disappearance just a coincidence, or was it orchestrated to silence his voice of truth? During the investigation, Yunus's abandoned car was found in the Gaziosmanpaga area, a suburb of Istanbul. The car was locked, and there was no trace of him inside. The police meticulously examined the vehicle and found some evidence suggesting that Yunus may have been held against his will. This could have been the first step toward uncovering the criminals behind his disappearance. Was the car hiding a mysterious secret that would lead the investigators to the first clue? After finding the car, the police began searching the area around Yunus's home. A growing sense of certainty emerged that the crime was not random, but rather orchestrated. The nearby area was thoroughly examined, and samples of potential evidence were collected, although most of them did not contribute significantly to clarifying the situation. Despite the ongoing investigation, the tension in the city mounted. Was there something bigger behind this mystery? The police left no stone unturned. They traced Yunus's last phone calls. Some numbers were unknown, but others raised suspicions. Among these calls were anonymous threats sent periodically to Yunus with disturbing messages. However, he did not know the sender. As the investigation advanced, it became clear that larger forces were involved in his disappearance. Were these calls warnings, or were they laying the groundwork for something darker and more sinister? Investigators discovered that Yunus had been receiving repeated threats before his disappearance. Emails, anonymous calls, and even personal threats had been directed at him. There seemed to be a connection between these threats and his investigations into major corruption cases. Yunus was no ordinary journalist. He was pursuing highly sensitive cases, making him a target for many enemies. Were these threats just attempts to deter him from his work, or were they a sign of something worse to come? In a shocking turn of events, Yunus Yıldırım's body was found in a remote area outside of Istanbul. He had been disposed of brutally, confirming that the crime was carefully planned. Upon examining the crime scene, it became clear that Yunus had been murdered after being tortured. This discovery was a blow to everyone, and questions grew about who was behind his death and what their true motives were. The answers to these questions were still elusive. The investigators began to meticulously gather forensic evidence. The body showed signs of multiple types of torture, which reinforced the theory that the crime was carefully orchestrated. Blood samples and other evidence were taken for analysis in police labs. There were also signs of a struggle, adding more mystery to the case. As the investigation deepened, dark truths began to surface, but the answer to the most important question remained far out of reach. The police managed to gather detailed information about individuals who might have been involved in the crime. Through tracing phone calls and correspondence, it became apparent that a powerful individual had a direct connection to Yunus before his death. Investigations suggested that this person might have had a strong motive to commit the crime. Over time, the evidence pointed toward well-known figures in society, which made the case even more complex. The investigators had to pinpoint the real culprits behind this heinous crime. In a surprising twist, a person with ties to multiple corruption cases and similar incidents was arrested. The suspect was a well-known figure in the media, who had had a previous relationship with Yunus. During the investigations, the suspect admitted to part of the crime, but without revealing all the details. It seemed that this individual was just a link in a chain of events, and the key question was, who was pulling the strings behind him? This revelation shocked the community. The police began to intensively interrogate the suspects. Among them were individuals with connections to the main suspect, and there were signs that they might be involved in Yunus's murder. The investigations revealed a network of people trying to cover up the crime. It appeared that Yunus had uncovered dangerous information related to political and financial corruption, making him a target for retaliation. As the investigation progressed, the picture became clearer. But the true secret behind this crime remained shrouded in mystery. The motives behind the murder gradually came to light. Yunus had published sensitive investigations exposing corruption, which led him to be threatened by influential figures. Corruption was one of the driving forces behind the criminal's decision to eliminate him. As time passed, investigators discovered links between the suspects and people in power, which made the case even more complicated. The threads connecting the case were becoming clearer, but they still did not reveal all the secrets. It was revealed that powerful figures with vested interests in hiding Yunus's investigations were behind the plot. It was about political and economic interests, as these figures feared that Yunus might expose their corruption. As the investigation continued, it became evident that the murder was part of an effort to intimidate journalists and prevent them from uncovering hidden truths. While things began to unfold, Yunus's family and friends wondered whether justice would ever be served. Finally, the trial of the defendants in the case began. The facts gradually came to light in the public eye, and the court started to hear testimonies and evidence. The crime had shaken the community, and justice was within reach. Despite some attempts to delay the trial, the decision was final. The main suspects were convicted, but the most important question remained: would those who were truly behind the crime ever face justice? Source of the case: the investigation into the case was opened in 2018 after Yunus Yıldırım, the journalist, disappeared in Istanbul, Turkey. The investigation lasted for 2 years, during which evidence and testimonies were collected in an attempt to identify the perpetrator. The case was officially closed in 2020 after the criminals involved in the murder were arrested, and they were linked to the crime through forensic evidence and ongoing investigations. Therefore, the case was opened in 2018 and officially closed in 2020 in Istanbul, Turkey.